life changing. Those are the words I want you to leave as a review once we finish this message. I don't mean that in a cocky, arrogant way. I'm just confident that this message I'm about to deliver is about to give you so much awareness about awareness. You're going to reach a level of metacognition that you are now essentially going to be aware of how unaware you've been. And it's nobody's fault. We've just been primed and conditioned, and we haven't been exposed to information that creates this perspective. This is known as empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge is just knowledge from experience. And the only way to truly get experience is to get exposure. And for the most part, we don't get exposure and get knowledge in the area of cognitive psychology, of neurochemistry, unless you seek it out yourself. And you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be interested in the area to really grasp this message, because it's applicable to every single individual that's alive. Let me just give a little overview of what essentially is going on, and then I'll dive right into the message. So our brain is essentially our body's engine, right? Our brain dictates for us to move our hands, legs, blink, talk, whatever you think about, your body does it. But the thought comes from the brain, and the mind is the brain in action. So whatever you think, you essentially manifest into reality with your body. Now, to avoid complexity on that topic, let's just stay at the level that our brain is our engine. And the problem is we don't know how our engine works, how our engine gets influenced. And majority of this information, this stimulus, persuades us at a subconscious level. So I'm going to be talking about cognitive biases. I'm going to be talking about what happens at an evolutionary, biological, behavioral level. And I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD, but I have empirical knowledge from this. First, I became aware about it, but more importantly, I started implementing it and being aware of this information, and then literally having first-hand experience of understanding what's going on once I do something, or more importantly, once I do not do something. And I want to talk about attention. This is what this episode's about. It's all about attention. The reason being, sir, is because I always catch myself throughout the day either looking at my phone, getting bombarded with the media. There's a good analogy to summarize this up. Present day, 2018, we live in what's known as a blizzard of information. There's so much stimulus hitting us every single day. There's no point in history of humanity that there was this much stimulus going on. We got social media. We got the internet itself. We got huge corporations trying to get our attention. And these corporations have data that essentially creates our personality type online. So they show us what we're genuinely interested in, and they have the upper hand on seeing what we want. Trust me, I'm a digital marketer, and I'm a micro speck of dust in this digital marketing galaxy, and I know how powerful it is, and I've had the positioning and power to influence certain type of behaviors and outcomes that I want because I had data. Data is the new gold. It's essentially the new gold and the new oil that companies want. Rockefellers, they're moving their money from oil and investing heavy into obtaining more and more data. But that's for another conversation. Essentially, what this is all about is attention. They're using that data to grab and just take control of your attention. And believe it or not, we're not really in control of our attention anymore. And like that one quote about the goldfish that says a goldfish has a higher attention span than us. I don't know if that's really true, but it's pretty relatable. And it's not our fault. Smartphones by very nature are designed to be very addictive, especially social media. There's a little effect on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook that it's mimicking what a slot machine does to a brain. It makes us feel that we are essentially creating and manifesting something new, that we're in control. It's all about into our personal perception upon the subject, and they have the leverage. So when you scroll down on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, you scroll down and then it loads and then new content pops up, right? Well, that is literally mimicking the slot machine effect. When you pull the lever down and you expect an outcome and then you expect a reward. That's what social media is now. Social media is now the new slot machine. You expecting new content, and then with the data and the information and artificial intelligence and algorithm behavior, they know what you want to see, so you're gonna stay more and more addicted. That's why Instagram, what's it called, the popular page, it's so addicting. It's so dangerous to get in there because you're gonna find stuff that entertains you because they know what you want. Bottom line. So be careful with that. And I wanted to also talk about the subconscious, what happens at a cognitive level where we're not even aware of the stimulus or the actions that is going on. To name a few cognitive biases that I find the most powerful, I'll start off with the basic, just human behavior, is that our brain, our mind, it moves towards reward and moves away from punishment. That is the reward bias and punishment avoiding bias. Now, where does this happen? Well, the reward bias, every single day, you have to make decisions based off what you think is a reward and based off you doing something that you know is going to avoid a punishment. For you to do anything, you have to decide upon it because that you want that outcome. You want to clean your room? Well, it's not that you want to physically go through the labor of cleaning your room. You want to clean your room so you have a clean room and you feel good about yourself. You have open-mindedness. You're mindful and you're just fulfilled within your room. You don't have the complaint. You also want to clean your room so your mom doesn't yell at you or you don't get in trouble or you don't have that guilt, right? You're moving away from punishment and you're moving towards a reward. That's just at a human behavior level, but it gets much more deeper. Let's talk about one of my favorite cognitive bias. It's known as the authority bias. Now, authority bias is saying that we just follow orders based if authoritative figures or someone we perceive as authoritative figure essentially dictates us. There's a good psychology experiment about volunteers, and then essentially they were brought into this lab and they told the scientists told the volunteers that they're across the room there's this test subject, which is another person, and they're gonna give them shocks, and when they give them shocks, based off, I believe they have to answer questions. If they get the question wrong, they get a shock, and then the shocks get stronger and stronger. But the person who is giving the shocks is a normal person. The scientist is giving the orders, and the person that's getting asked the questions is part of the test study, but the person giving the shock doesn't know that. So it starts off normal. People get the question wrong, get a mild shock, and then it gets to a point where the person receiving the shock starts screaming and hollering and begging to stop and saying, "No, please, no more, no more, no more, no more," and just begging for the person to stop. But the person who is giving the shock, they're going crazy. He's like, "Oh, no, I don't want to do this no more. Please make me stop. Please, like, I beg you." They're begging the scientists to make them stop. But the scientists keep saying, "Do it. You have to do it. This is for science," or whatever. And they get persuaded to pull the lever to give the person a strong shock. And they hear the screams of agony, and they feel extremely bad. The person giving the shock doesn't want to do it, but is still doing it because the authoritative figure, which is the scientist, is telling them to do so. This study was groundbreaking. I believe it was not legal because the shocks were not real. Like I said, the person receiving the shocks was part of the subject, and he was just faking the screams. But the person giving the shock didn't know that, and this led to find the cognitive bias of authority figure bias, that once there's an authority figure, we're told to do something and we're not even fond or want to do it, but we end up doing it still. So that's one cognitive bias. Another one that I see going on 24/7 now, especially with Trump and the media. There's two in this one. There's the love bias and there's the dislike-hate bias. So the love bias is essentially when you ignore the flaws and the problems that someone you see as virtuous, as good, and you just ignore their flaws. And On the other hand, the hate and dislike bias is you ignore the person's virtue or the person's good because you dislike them or you hate them. I see this a lot with Trump. A lot of people hate Trump, or they either love him and they ignore his flaws, or they ignore the good he does. Right? This is a cognitive bias that we have, and this creates a blindfold for you to seek reality and just get a true perspective. And that is one of the most cutting edge ones that was going on present day. But most people don't think about it this way. They don't see that, oh, this is what's going on. I'm feeling this type of way. My attention is directed in this manner because of this cognitive bias. But here is where it gets powerful. Once you add up enough cognitive bias, I just named 4. I think I am going to have to dictate an entire episode just to name as many as I can. Once you add around more than 5 or 6, you create what is known as the Lollapalooza effect. And this is when cognitive biases override rationality. And essentially, our reasoning, our logic go out the window and we just succumb to the stimulus. A good example of this is an auction. Billionaires Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, they say they never go to an auction because they know they're going to be made a loser. And essentially what happens at an auction is there's so much stimulus, so much cognitive biases that they get influenced in a manner that they're even aware of is going to happen, but they still are doing it. You got the urgency bias. The auctioneer speaker talks really fast, going once, going twice. You got the reward bias. Well, you're at an auction because you think something there is cool. You got the social status bias. Oh, someone's competing against you. Oh, you got to prove yourself. You got yourself the authority bias. The speaker is on top of a stand and he's the authoritative figure. You got the availability bias, which is when you guess. The easier it is to get something, the more likely you're going to do it. Think about fast food. Fast food's so easy, available, cheap to get that. And it's a reward that your brain just succumbs to it much easier. And then you keep adding these biases and then you create the Lollapalooza. And then you end up buying a piece of art worth $2 million that you don't want. So that's what they end up saying about auctions, that they don't do it because they know about the Lollapalooza effect. But back to the main message of this podcast, attention. You have to be aware of where your attention is getting directed. Be aware of these cognitive biases happening in your everyday and how corporations, people, individuals, society is using them against you, and how your attention is just being directed in a path that they want, not what you want. Think about it. What should be you using your attention for? You should be using your attention to educate you, to create a better self. And I don't mean this in a corny manner. I don't mean this in the rah-rah state. I literally mean this to give your attention to process data, to gain a new level of awareness, to create a better perception. And then that way, you know what to do based off the information you have to work off. And you also know what not to do. Once you become aware of the cognitive biases and the flaws within our cognitive manner, you're going to be aware of positioning yourself to avoid it. Trust me, that's what I do. When I see something and I know cognitive biases are going to be happening, I know, like, all right, this is what's going to be expecting it. Boom. And it's not so black and white of just you knowing and it's not going to happen. Sometimes you just know it's there, but you still succumb to it. That's human behavior. You can be as aware of stuff you want, but sometimes you're still going to succumb to it. But think about it on a personal level. Ask yourself, where should you be giving your attention to? Maybe you should be reading more instead of being on social media. Maybe you should be practicing a skill more rather than gossiping on whatever, right? You got to give your attention and diversify your energy towards a path that is going to create the outcome that you truly desire. And be careful what you desire. Your brain is going to view a reward in a manner that isn't essentially a beneficial reward. Your brain views fast food as a reward, but is really fast food beneficial for you? No, it harms you. There's more harm to your body than it does good. But your brain sees it as a reward because it stimulates the hell out of it. So be careful of what rewards you want, and then find the discipline and determination to persevere through the entropy of our own cognitive process and just manifest it. It's very powerful stuff, guys. Like I said, this is life-changing. When I heard this, I was in shock. I listened to the episode to this process around 5 times. About the cognitive biases itself, but I brought in more areas, and I just want to deliver the message that your attention, like if you have the intention to listen all the way through to this podcast, congratulations. I'm very thankful for that in the first place. I'm thankful for your attention. Trust me, I believe people who have a vast power of grasping people's attention are underrating it and not viewing it as the true value that they have. Very few individuals are extremely aware of the power that they get once they can grasp people's attention. And if I can get 18 minutes throughout of your day, I truly, truly appreciate it. And I also wish and hope that I'm doing my best, that I am providing the most value I can for your life, making you aware, giving you awareness about awareness so you can create that metacognitive skill. I came up with the name for this process. I call it awareness. When it's the creation of aware cognition, or to keep it simple, it's the creation of aware thinking. I truly believe our thoughts influence 99% of our life. So if we can create the best thoughts, we will create the best actions, we will create the best outcomes, and we will feel our best. That's what life is about. Life is pretty much just neurochemistry. It's how our brain feels. So we got to be careful with how we make our brain feel and how we do that exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna cut it short. I want to keep it under 18 minutes. I learned that TED Talks are 18 minutes because human attention, it can only go that far. So if neuroscientists and the world's greatest minds leave that as a message, just stand on the shoulders of giants and follow the steps. Alrighty, guys. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention so much from the bottom of my heart. I am truly, truly grateful. I hope you found value in this. If you could do me a favor, please leave a review. It would mean a lot. Reach out to me on social media, or Twitter, anywhere. I'm most active on Twitter, but anywhere is fine. I would just love to get feedback. And if people reach out, it makes my day. Trust me. Okay, so once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And if you could do me that favor of leaving a review and also sharing this, that would truly, truly make my day. Okay? Thank you very much, guys.